Hello all. Hello. This is, I think now we are live. Yes. So now I think we can start with the first goal mage of year 2020. Hello all. This is Neha Mahajan from Team Opash. I welcome you all for first goal mage session of 2020. My name is Neha and I will be the chief moderator for today's session. Let me tell you something about myself. I've completed MPhil in political science from Pune University, and currently I'm associated with Opash Socio Commercials Private Limited. Uh, Team Opash is very excited for today's Golmage because this is the first Golmage of year 2020. First of all, happy Independence Day to all of you. I think there cannot be the better day than this to start with, to embark upon this new journey of Golmage. We are very happy, very excited about today's session. Barack Obama said that the biggest threat to democracy is indifference. There are and there will be indifferences in the societies and democracies. But what matters is how we deal with these indifferences. This is what Golmage is all about. We at Team Opash decided to come up with Golmage, with the concept of Golmage, where we can create a platform where we can discuss these indifferences, where we can share ideas, where we can have healthy discussions, civilized debates about important issues. So long story short, we want to create a safe space in form of Golmage where we as a society can discuss, debate our ideas, our differences, our indifferences, and can protect the social and democratic fabric of our democracy. थोडक्यात सांगायचं तर आजच्या या बाजू घेण्याची अनाहूत सक्ती असलेल्या जगात आपल्याला जे वाटतंय ते मांडण्यासाठी, तथ्य आधारित खरीखुरी माहिती शेअर करण्यासाठी आणि या माहितीच्या आधारे आपली भूमिका ठरवण्यासाठीचं एक हक्काचं व्यासपीठ असावं म्हणून आम्ही गोलमेजची निर्मिती करण्याचे ठरवले. In today's age of information, loads of information is available on our fingertips. How to process that information is a challenging task. Golmage will put facts, Golmage will put different perspectives in front of you, and Golmage will help you understand our reality in a better manner. So every month we are going to have Golmage. We will discuss one topic every month in depth. There won't be any experts in Golmage. This is, I think, very important point which I want to share with all of you, all our viewers, that there won't be any experts in Golmage. People like you and me can come, study, and present the topic. Everyone and anyone can become the presenter for the Golmage. I think we will keep discussing this idea of Golmage throughout the session. As of now, let's start with today's session, with today's Golmage. Let me introduce my team for today's session. Komal and Akhil, I welcome you both for today's session. Both of them are members of Secretary Panel, and Akhil is also working as co-moderator. Kapilesh is handling all the technical management of today's session. So yes, moving forward, now I request Komal to explain the rules and regulations for today's session. कारण आपल्या सगळ्यांना माहिती आहे की खेळामध्ये नियमाशिवाय मजा नाहीये. सो कोमल आपल्या सगळ्यांना काही महत्त्वाचे नियम समजावून सांगणार आहे. ओव्हर टू यू कोमल.
Thank you, Neha. A very good evening to everyone. This is from the Secretary Panel that shall be responsible for ensuring adherence to all the rules and regulations of Golmage. It is imperative that we sincerely ensure the observance of such rules and regulations to ensure a truly productive session of Golmage today. I shall now make an announcement of some of the basic important rules that are to be observed throughout this session. Firstly, the medium of communication in this Golmage for all speakers may be English, Marathi, or Hindi. Secondly, Every speaker will be allotted a certain amount of time within which they shall conclude. Thirdly, the instructions of the moderator in respect to moderation shall be binding on all speakers and presenters, which includes making comments, putting questions, etc. This is to ensure a smooth discussion. Further, all speakers should make sure not to speak out of turn or over each another as far as possible. Please note that none of the organizing individuals or institutions of Goldmate shall bear any liability or responsibility for any words used by any of the participants and the presenter. The participants and the presenter shall bear responsibility in their individual capacity for the words used by them during this session of Goldmate. Importantly, every speaker shall refrain from the usage of any words that may lead to the violation of any law in force. For example, making an inflammatory or hateful statement against any community, or making a defamatory or insulting statement against any person. Further, no speaker shall make any personal comment throughout this session of Goldmage or any comment that contains any personal content against any person. For the viewers, any questions by the viewers where they wish to put them to the presenter, participants, or the moderator, they will be taken up by the moderator as per her discretion. They may be put up by you in the comments section on our Facebook page. Lastly, at any point throughout this session of Goldmage, the secretary panel reserves the right to interrupt, to restrain, or issue a warning to any person against the violation of any of the specified rules or against any undesirable act or speech, as and when the panel may deem necessary according to the situation. In case of continued non-compliance with the rules or restraint after issuing a warning by this panel, the panel may exercise the right to disqualify such a person from participation in this session. Now, firstly, the presenter will make a presentation over our topic. Then our participants will express their views on the topic, followed by a discussion among them all. Thereafter, questions may be taken up by the moderators. We shall then move towards the conclusion of this session with a concluding statement from this panel on our session today and further announcements. This was your briefing on the rules and flow of Goldmage today. Thank you all very much for intently listening.
थँक यू सो मच कोमल, थँक्यू सो मच. आय थिंक हे सगळे खूप महत्त्वाचे रूल्स आहेत जे सगळ्यांसाठी सगळ्यांनाच लागू होतील या सेशनमध्ये. बिफोर प्रेझेंटेशन, बिफोर स्टार्टिंग द प्रेझेंटेशन, आय विल क्विकली इंट्रोड्यूस द प्रेझेंटर and all the three participants for today's session, and then we'll start with the discussion, presentation, and debate per se. So I'll start with the presenter's introduction. Today, Anand is going to present the given topic. Anand has completed MSc in microbiology from Fergusson College and MA in development studies from TISS, Tata Institute of Social Sciences. Currently, he is pursuing postgraduate diploma in international human rights law. He is preparing for UPSC. In addition to it, he is actively associated with causes of women empowerment, youth development, and community rights. He is passionate about theater acting, reading, dancing, boxing, and rapping. I welcome Anand for today's session. Today, he'll present on, are we really in a position to hit China's wallet? The current topic, the hot topic. So yes, Anand, before that, I'll quickly introduce all the participants so that we can move to your presentation. Today, we have three participants with us. First, let me introduce them, and then we'll again share the comments and the feedback and your presentation, everything. So today, Shruti is with us. Shruti has completed Masters in Computer Science. She has worked for Infosys Technologies, Tieto Technologies, and Simply Compete Technologies. Currently, she is working in paints manufacturing businesses. Shruti, I welcome you on behalf of Team Opush. Our next participant is Nikita. She has finished her bachelor's degree in economics in 2017. Then she joined CRISIL's in 2018 as a research analyst. Recently, she has completed Master of Economics program at the National University of Singapore. Welcome, Nikita. And our last participant, our next participant is Samir. He has completed BE Mechanical from Pune University and MS Astronautical Engineering from University of Southern California. Presently, he is working as aerospace consultant. Yes, so welcome all. Welcome Anand, Nikita, Shruti, Samir. Now over to you, Anand. For next 25 minutes, you'll be presenting on this topic. After 20 minutes of your presentation, there will be a warning bell, and then you have to end your presentation. So all the best, Anand. Over to you.
Hello, am I audible?
Yes, yes.
Yeah. So, hello, welcome. And first of all, happy Independence Day to all of you. Um, Before presenting towards today's topic, we have to understand today's topic is very important because we live in an era where not only national uh, dynamics is rapidly changing, but also international dynamics are also rapidly changing. We are living in a nation and we are living in a world which is rapidly transforming itself. The space and the speed of those changes is so much dynamic that sometimes it may overwhelm us. But it is our duty to understand these issues, and specifically the issues which are not only going to affect us on a national interest, on a foreign policy level, but also on a socio-economical and also political, cultural aspects. So um, today's today's point that we want to explain is that, are we in a position to hit China's wallets? Yeah.
आनंद तू स्लाइड शो वर जाऊन तिथून फ्रॉम द बिगिनिंग असं म्हणू शकतोस.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, great.
Is it
Yes,
visible?
yes, yes.
Yes. So today's topic that we are discussing is, are we in a position to hit China's wallet?
Yes.
The question that we must ask to ourselves, हा प्रश्न आपण स्वतःला विचारला पाहिजे की आज आपण हा टॉपिक डिस्कस का करतोय, आणि हा जर टॉपिक आपण आज डिस्कस करत असू तर या टॉपिकची पार्श्वभूमी काय आहे. बिकॉज एनी टॉपिक that we as a nation face, it has a continuity to itself. It has a historical continuity, it has a social, political, cultural, economical continuity to it. So when we want to discuss and ponder more over upon this topic of, are we in position to hit China's wallet, we must understand the history of this whole issue which recently cropped up in our nation. To understand this issue, we have to understand India and China's relationships with each other. India and China are one of the largest Asian nations. They are not just one of the largest Asian nations, they are also ancient civilization. India has its own ancient civilization, and China also have a ancient civilization. And this two great nations, this ancient two civilizations, have gone through a series of changes and transformations and turmoils in their own history. In China's case, there was a turmoil of their own history, and in India's case, there was a turmoil in their own history. One of the prominent watershed moment of these two nations' history was colonization and imperialism. As we know that India was colonized by various Western European powers, but later on it was dominated by British Empire. In China's case, Chinese nation was curtailed and subjugated by Western powers. When we understand this history of these two nations, जेव्हा आपण या दोन आशियाई देशांचा इतिहास समजून घेतो, त्यांचा वसाहतवादाचा इतिहास आपण जेव्हा समजून घेतो, तेव्हा आपण हे देखील लक्षात घेतलं पाहिजे की ह्या दोन्ही देशांनी, दिस टू नेशन्स, reacted towards this colonization, this imperialism in their own way. Both these nations, India and China, they reacted to this colonization, they reacted to this Western imperialism in the form of national movement. India had a big, long national movement, and China also had its own fight, struggle to come out of this imperial pressure. So because of the output of this national movement, we see India got independence in 15 August 1947. China got its People's Republic status by 1949 under the leadership of Mao Zedong, and it was a communist revolution. So China took a different path of communist revolution, whereas India fought for its independence and established itself as a new secular democracy. But as I said, that any issue, and specifically issue related to nations or foreign policy or national security or social, political, economical, these issues does not occur in vacuum. असे जे वेगवेगळे प्रश्न असतात, वेगवेगळ्या मोठमोठ्या देशांमधल्या समस्या असतात, त्या अशा अचानक आपल्या समोर येत नाहीत. त्याच्या मागे एक इतिहास असतो, त्याच्या मागे एक हिस्ट्री असते. In India and China's case, the shadow of their past, the shadow of their both nations' history was always there. And what was that? When British left South Asia, when British left India, as we all know, India had to go through partition, and India was established as a secular democratic nation. But at that time, British government demarcated India's borders, and the border which they demarcated between China and India was a McMahon line. Now, there is a issue, there is a historical issue associated with this border between India and China. This kind of borders are there all across South Asia. For example, border separating India and Pakistan is a Radcliffe line. Border separating India and China is a McMahon line. Border separating Afghanistan and Pakistan is a Durand line. And all these lines, as we see, आपण हे पाहू शकतो की ह्या ज्या लाईन्स आहेत, ह्या ब्रिटिश साम्राज्याने तयार केलेल्या आहेत, आणि ह्या बॉर्डर्स तयार करून ब्रिटिश साऊथ एशियामधून, इंडियन सबकॉन्टिनेंट मधून त्यांनी आपलं जे काही राज्य आहे ते गुंडाळलं. बट दिस बॉर्डर्स आर कंटेस्टेड. या बॉर्डर्स रिझॉल्व्ड नाही आहेत. या बॉर्डर्सवर दोन देशांची संमती नाही आहे. According to China, when it comes to McMahon line, according to China, China never accepted this McMahon line. China never accepted the subjugation of British empire on itself. So China never accepted the agency of British Empire to decide its own borders. China says that British India have no locus standi in designing and deciding China's borders. So it is a Chinese duty to decide and design its own borders. Whereas in India's case, the situation is different. जेव्हा भारताला स्वातंत्र्य मिळालं, तेव्हा भारताने ठरवलं की जी ब्रिटिश इंडियाची बॉर्डर असेल, जी ब्रिटिश इंडियानी बॉर्डर तयार केल्या असतील भारताच्या, त्याच बॉर्डर आपण आपल्या स्वतंत्र देशाच्या बॉर्डर मानूयात, आणि त्यानुसार आपण आपल्या देशाची जी काही सीमा आहे ती निर्धारित करूयात. This creates a fundamental point of conflict, or fundamental point of misunderstanding between India and China as far as the border issue is concerned. हा मुळात प्रश्न आहे भारत आणि चायनाच्या बॉर्डर इश्यू बद्दल. टुडे द रियालिटी इज देर इज नो डिमार्केटेड बॉर्डर बिटवीन इंडिया अँड चायना. म्हणजे आज आपण जर भारताचा आणि चायनाचा जर आपण बॉर्डर एरिया पाहिला, तर त्याच्यामध्ये बऱ्याच वेळेला आपल्याला असे काही भाग दिसतात बॉर्डर एरियामध्ये जे कंटेस्टेड आहेत, जे वादग्रस्त आहेत. देर इज नो लाईन ऑफ कंट्रोल देर. देर इज अ लाईन ऑफ ऍक्च्युअल कंट्रोल देर. व्हॉट इज द लाईन ऑफ ऍक्च्युअल कंट्रोल? जेव्हा तुमची सीमा, तुमच्या दोन देशांच्या सीमा निर्धारित नसतात, तेव्हा तुम्ही लाईन ऑफ ऍक्च्युअल कंट्रोल तयार करता. त्यानुसार जो वादग्रस्त एरिया असतो, जो कंटेस्टेड एरिया असतो, तिथं दोन्ही देशांचे सैनिक पेट्रोलिंग करतात, गस्त घालतात, टेहळणी करतात. अँड बिकॉज ऑफ दॅट व्हॉट हॅपन्स, both nations soldiers may come across each other, and it arises a possibility of skirmishes. So this is the history of India China's border dispute in its nutshell. So what happened in Galwan Valley? So in India and China standoff in Galwan Valley, which happened in June 2020, it led to a skirmish, a conflict between Indian troops and Chinese troops. भारतीय सैनिक आणि चायनीज सैनिकांमध्ये त्या ठिकाणी संघर्ष झाला. या संघर्षामध्ये 20 भारतीय सैनिक वीरगतीला प्राप्त झाले, शहीद झाले. This led to a massive anti-China sentiment in India because of the Indian media and also various statements put up by media channels and the media outlets and also by government. It led to a massive anti-China sentiment in India. The whole public narration in India suddenly became strongly become anti-Chinese. When this kind of situation happened, India also had to retaliate and reflect its position. So Indian government did a decision to ban a number of Chinese apps, including Cam Scanner and TikTok and various others, WeChat and all. But the main question remains here. When we understand foreign policy aspects and the relationship between two nations, we must understand this thing, that are we in position to hit China's wallets by banning its app or banning its services or banning its goods? So let's understand this thing, this economical aspect of these two nations in a much more clear way. China accounts for 14% of India's imports, and it is a major supplier of sectors like mobile phones, telecom, power, plastic toys, and critical pharma ingredients. आज भारतामध्ये मोबाईल फोन असतील, टेलिकॉम असेल, पॉवर असेल, खेळण्या असतील आणि अशा बऱ्याचशा औषधांची उत्पादनं असतील. हा खूप मोठा घटक जो आहे तो भारत आज चीनमधून आयात करतोय. त्याचं प्रमाण 14% आहे. At least 70% of India's drug intermediary needs are fulfilled by China. म्हणजे आज भारताचा खूप मोठा घटक हा चायनीज औषधांवर अवलंबून आहे. 18 out of 30 Indian unicorns, the tech startups that we say to them, valued over 1 billion, such as Zomato, Paytm, Big Basket, Ola, all they have Chinese investments. Chinese investment have penetrated itself into Indian market deeply, and they have invested their money into Indian market. If we understand the nature of India-China's trade relationship, if we try to understand India-China's trade relationships with respect to export and import, भारत आणि चीन या दोन देशांमध्ये आयात आणि निर्यात या व्यापाराच्या दोन बाजूंचा संबंध आपण जर समजून घ्यायचा प्रयत्न केला तर आपल्याला खूप मोठी दरी दिसून येते, खूप मोठी तफावत दिसून येते. And how is that valid? India's export to China in financial year 2019 was only 5.1%, whereas India's import from China was 13.7%. आपण पाहू शकतो की भारत चीनला फक्त 5% गोष्टी निर्यात करतोय, पण चीनकडून 13%हून जास्त साहित्य आयात करतोय, आणि ते सुद्धा फार्मा आणि केमिकल आणि टेलिकॉम, इलेक्ट्रॉनिक्स अशा महत्वाच्या साहित्यामध्ये भारत चीनकडून गोष्टी आयात करतोय. If we understand China's export and import relationship with India, the situation is exactly opposite. Exactly opposite. चायना भारताला फक्त जर चायना भारताकडून 3% गोष्टी एक्सपोर्ट करत असेल, निर्यात करत असेल, तर चीन भारताकडून फक्त 0.9% इम्पोर्ट करतोय. सो द चायना's import of Indian goods is very negligible. It's not even a 1%, it's 0.9%. So the number are very clear over here. If we try to understand this import-export gap with respect to India-China relationships and try to understand other players, other countries in it, again the story becomes much more clear. भारताचे जे पहिले तीन जे आयात करणारे जे देश आहेत, आयातदार देश आहेत, त्याच्यामध्ये चायना सगळ्यात नंबर 1 आहे. सगळ्यात जास्त माल भारत हा चीनकडून आयात करतो, विच इज 14.9%. whereas भारत सगळ्यात जास्त निर्यात सगळ्यात कमी जर निर्यात कुठल्या देशाला करत असेल पहिल्या 3 एक्सपोर्ट कंट्रीज मध्ये, तो चायना आहे, विच इज 5.33%. सो आपण पाहू शकतो की भारताचं आयात अवलंबित्व चीनवर खूप जास्त आहे आणि चीनचं भारतावरचं आयात अवलंबित्व खूप कमी आहे. There is a big gulf in India-China trade. There is a big disparity in India-China trade. If we understand India-China's trade and to understand in whose side this whole balance is shifting, we can easily say that India is suffering through negative trade deficit, whereas China is benefiting more from India-China trade. If we see this diagram clearly, we can see that the gulf in India-China trade is huge. If we see a small blue color line which represents the export of India's is very small, whereas the import of India from China is more, and the trade deficit is humongous. So we can see that India-China relationships are multifaceted. भारत आणि चीन या दोन आशियाई देशांचे संबंध हे वेगवेगळ्या पैलूंनी तयार केले गेलेले आहेत. त्या पद्धतीनेच ते इतिहास काळापासून घडलेले आहेत. या दोन देशांचे आर्थिक, सामाजिक, राजकीय, सैन्य विषयक असे वेगवेगळे संबंध जे तयार होत आहेत, ह्याच्यामध्ये आर्थिक बाजू ही खूप महत्वाची असते. आणि जेव्हा आपण चीनला त्यांचे ऍप्स बॅन करतो आहोत, त्यावेळेला आपण हा देखील विचार करणं एक महत्वाचं होऊन बसतं की आर वी रियली इन पोझिशन टू हिट चायनाज वॉलेट्स. सो दीज आर द फ्यू नंबर्स विच आय हॅव ट्राय टू पुट अक्रॉस यू, and so that you may have more clarity towards this particular subject and particular topic. I request if there is any question or any doubt, the participants may interact our panelist and moderator so that they can revert back to me. So I am done from my part. Thank you so much.
Yes, great. Thank you so much, Anand. Thank you so much for this wonderful and very insightful presentation. I'm sure our viewers, they must have gotten to know about this issue in greater detail. मला असं वाटतंय की आपण जशी जशी आता चर्चा पुढे जाईल त्याप्रमाणेच आपण या विषयावरती आणखीन चर्चा करू शकू. प्रेझेंटरचं प्रेझेंटेशन आता झालेलं आहे. सो मला असं वाटतंय की आता आपण पार्टिसिपंट्स ना या चर्चेमध्ये सहभागी करून घेऊ शकतो. आणि आनंद, जस्ट रिक्वेस्ट, कॅन यू जस्ट टर्न ऑफ युअर स्क्रीन शेअरिंग ऑप्शन?
येस.
सो येस, आपण या विषयावरची चर्चा अजून पुढे नेऊच या, पण आता मला वाटतं की पार्टिसिपंट्सना आपण या चर्चेमध्ये सहभागी करून घेऊया. ते कपिलेश, तू घेतलंस वेटिंग रूम मधून आत, तू तिन्ही पार्टिसिपंट्सना घेऊ शकतो स्क्रीनवरती. येस. हॅलो समीर, हॅलो श्रुती.
हॅलो नेहा.
येस, आणि निकिता. हाय. मी अगदी थोडक्यात पार्टिसिपंट्सची ओळख करून देणार आहे आणि मग आपण थेट चर्चेला सुरुवात करूया. टुडे वी हॅव 3 participants with us. First, let me introduce them and then we'll share their comments, their feedbacks. So yes, today Shruti is with us. Shruti has completed Masters in Computer Science. She has worked for Infosys Technologies, Tieto Technologies, and Simply Compete Technologies in the past. Currently, she is working in paints manufacturing business. Shruti, I welcome you on behalf of Team Opus. Our next participant is Nikita. She has finished her bachelor's degree in economics in 2017. Then she joined CRISIL's in 2018 as research analyst. Recently, she has completed Masters of Economics program at the National University of Singapore. Welcome, Nikita. Our next participant is Sameer. He has completed BE Mechanical Engineering from Pune University and MS in Astronautical Engineering from University of Southern California. Presently, he is working as aerospace consultant. So yes, welcome Sameer. I welcome all the participants. We'll start with Shruti. And the time is like 5 to 7 minutes. You have 5 to 7 minutes in your hand. आणि तुला जे काही वाटलं प्रेझेंटेशनशी निगडित ते तू तुझ्या कमेंट्स मध्ये मांडू शकतेस. श्रुती नंतर निकिता आणि निकिता नंतर समीर आणि त्यांच्या त्यांच्या कमेंट्स मांडतील आणि त्यानंतर आपण डिस्कशनला सुरुवात करूया. सो ओव्हर टू यू श्रुती.
Thank you, Neha. So firstly, good evening, everyone, and a very happy Independence Day to all of you. So आनंदने एक खूप छान प्रेझेंटेशन आणि एक खूप छान डेटा आपल्या समोर प्रेझेंट केला. Now it's my turn to present my view about our topic today, which is whether India is in a position to hit China's wallet. So I will try to explain and give you more insight about where I stand about this. So my position in this particular topic is that I'm ambivalent. Because let me explain why am I ambivalent about this. Uh, uh, while I'm saying that I'm ambivalent about this, I'm aware uh, that I'm cognizant about the strengths of our country. But while I'm aware of those trends, I cannot turn a blind eye to the problems or hurdles that our country faces today. These problems or hurdles are actually stalling us from reaching full potential. I will now attempt to give you a background for this position. Firstly, according to me, hitting China's wallet will take more than boycotting China's products and banning their apps. To elaborate this further, let's look at the trade deficit between India and China, which already Anand explained. So the trade deficit fell from 53.56 billion US dollars in the financial year 2018-19 to 48.66 billion US dollars in the year 2019-20. This happened because there was a decline in imports from China. Even though the trade deficit has declined, I still feel that the 48.66 billion US dollars is still a huge gap that we need to fill. The main imports from China include clocks, watches, musical instruments, toys, sports goods, furniture, mattresses, plastics, electronic equipment, electrical machinery, chemicals, iron and steel items, fertilizers, mineral fuel, and some metals. Now, if we look at the list here, there are a lot of direct consumables that we import from China. If we boycott Chinese goods that are readily available in our market, the trade deficit can be brought down further. However, not very sizably, because the major imports that we have, the major chunk of the imports are the electrical machinery, electronic equipment, chemicals, iron, steel, which are high value items, and they really form a host of our imports from China. For example, uh, if there are toys in the market, and if we are considering that we should probably buy some toys that are made in India. However, my question is whether there are enough alternatives that are available in India, available that are made in India, that is, and whether we really, if they are available, are they as cheap or as probably affordable as the Chinese goods that we get in the market today. Now, one might also, we also have to agree that citizens of India are always, or let's not just say citizens of India, anyone is always looking for an affordable option when we come to think of buying something. So those who don't mind spending a little extra can definitely choose to do this, but not all of us can afford to do this, and this is a major restricting factor because China gives us, or rather, China offers goods at a very competitive price. So, having said that, if you observe closely, you see that many high value products that we buy have either been assembled or have parts that are manufactured in China. This brings us to the manufacturing industry in China that has seen a huge growth in the last 2 decades. There have been quite a few innovative and novel products that have been churned out by them. Back home, however, the manufacturing industry is, if not shrinking, at least is seeing a slowdown. This can be a cumulative effect of many factors. For example, let us look at the ease of doing business. India is ranked 63rd among 190 economies in the world with respect to the ease of doing business, whereas China ranks 31st. Now, as a country, our biggest asset is our human resource. And we are one of the youngest countries in the world with respect to the average age of our population. But Still, we are unable to capitalize on this huge potential. Also, India is a democracy, whereas China is not. And this has a major role to play in the way the economies function. Even though we would like to believe that we are inching towards being a capitalist nation, in essence, we are still socialist in our approach. I say this because our labor laws have not been altered for a long period of time, and those that are to be changed have been in the process for a long time. So even if we boost our manufacturing sector, we won't be able to offer our products at a competitive price cap, as we have to follow all labor laws, which also consists of minimum wage and minimum wage laws, and also the labor unions, which are practically non-existent in China. Also, our vision as a country changes with the changing governments that have different political ideologies.
Shruti,
If
you
you
have 1 minute. You have one
Okay.
minute. Yeah.
Yes. If you look at the Chinese economy from the 1970s, they have slowly moved on from being a centrally planned system to a more market-oriented economy. They have implemented changes in a gradualist fashion, resulting in efficiency gain, which has in turn contributed to more than tenfold increase in their GDP since 1978. So, if we aim at denting China's wallet, our efforts have to be concentrated and well planned, taking into account our diversity, and should also be all encompassing. And this has to be a gradual yet sure footed change which can happen over a long period of time. So I conclude by saying that, do we have the potential to compete with China? Then the answer is a resounding yes. But are we poised to do it immediately? I'm not too sure about that. Thank you to the organizers for giving me an opportunity to put forth my view on this topic today. And over to you, Neha. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Shruti. I think Shruti has raised many important issues and many important points regarding this topic. आपण याच्यावरती आणखीन चर्चा करूच या. Nikita, over to you for next 5-6 minutes.
Thanks, Neha. Shruti, you have put forward some amazing points,
Yeah.
and I agree with almost all of them, without a doubt. But when we pose this question, are we currently in a position to hit one of our biggest neighbors? No, we definitely are not, if you ask me this question today. But then, when are we ever ready? India needs to start somewhere, right? I mean, it sounds philosophical, all right, I understand, but we need to start. And I feel with the way the government is approaching this entire situation since the stance at the Galwan Valley conflict, I feel that there's a definitive policy shift towards making China heavily China dependent industries such as pharma and smartphones. Our government is trying to make us self-reliant. For example, back in March, the government came up with a 3,000 crore investment scheme to produce 3 bulk drug parks in order to produce APIs, and have promised a whopping 7,000 crores for the next 8 years. Secondly, our government has announced 41,000 crore rupees with under the PLI, production linked scheme or production linked incentive scheme, to make India an export hub, rivaling Northeast Asia's electronics powerhouse. It offers this particular scheme offers 4 to 6% incentives on incremental sales, with 2019-20 as the base year. 22 companies have already enlisted, and the selected companies, the shortlisted ones, will produce worth of 11.5 lakh crores of products in the next 5 years. And the government estimates currently that the scheme alone will produce 3 lakh direct and around 9 lakh indirect jobs in India. Now, recently I came across the news that the Bureau of Indian Standards has set up regulatory norms to ensure quality imports, and have cut down, in order to cut down substandard and non-essential products by March 2021. So we are seeing some serious movements from our government on the policy front, especially in terms of our imports, with China being the focus point. Now, the second issue over here that I feel is, although we see, like you mentioned, Shruti, our governments are very different. We have a decentralized policymaking system in India. There is a centralized policymaking system in China. So even if the central government comes up with a certain policy, that implementation and trickle down effect at the state level takes up an immense amount of time. And that particular gestation period is, it's economically costing for everyone. And it also results in serious lags in terms of employment, and also in terms of our state treasuries. So that's one issue that I would like to raise. So I feel that on the economic front, India needs to build a sustainable strategy to effectively weed out the Chinese market share from the domestic spheres. I firmly believe that the trickle down if development, which was the trickle down effect, which was put forward first in the planning commissions way back in the 60s and the 70s by the then Nehruvian government, have long proven to be ineffective. So we need to start hitting the grassroots, and the grassroots, mainly the manufacturing sector. So, and when we do that, we would see a rapid industrialization process. Of course, it's a very long way to go, but then it would also make it a point to include people at the rural level and provide them livelihoods, employment, at the end of the day, economic growth. It's all just like a vicious cycle, it's a virtuous cycle. So that is one point. And then I think that the infrastructure-led growth and the resultant supply chains would be should be the focus point for generating employment going forward. And one another point which I would like to state is that the standoff and the current situation and how we are going to hit their wallets is not only about economics, because economics cannot be separated from politics. They go hand in hand always, period. So there are several exogenous factors at play. We both are such countries that every step we take is always under international scrutiny. So despite of all that we are doing inside, the outside factors are going to be equally important and need to be paid attention to and need to be dealt with proper discretion by our government. And that's about it.
येस थँक्यू सो मच निकिता. निकिताने जे काही मुद्दे मांडले त्याच्यावरती आपण चर्चा करूच या. समीर, ओव्हर टू यू.
Thank you, Neha.
Yeah.
Are you able to hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. First of all, thanks for having me here for this forum. It's a great opportunity for regular citizens to put forth their opinions and their feelings more than anything else. Happy Independence Day to one and all.
Yes.
I feel it's going to be a really tough task to fill in the shoes of the ladies who have spoken before me, because they have backed all their arguments with the solid data, and it's really hard to sort of do a better job than that. So I think I'll go on a more of a philosophical note to put forth my arguments. Where I'll try to base my arguments more on the emotions of the Indian public, the Indian ethos, and the way things have shaped up historically, presently, and how our actions affect our paths going forward as well in the future. Because I thoroughly believe that it's as much as our history matters in such circumstances, our present actions and the course that our countries are charting for ourselves moving forward is just as important as anything else in our journeys as separate nation states, as developing economies, and two of the most up and coming powerhouses of the world. It's always going to be a sort of a geopolitical struggle when you have big countries like China and India, situated side by side geographically. It is going to cause tensions. It is going to cause situations directly influenced by our histories. So, these situations arising out of geopolitical circumstances are something that uh, we need to consider, while moving forward, for any country for that matter, but especially for countries the size of India and China. While I do agree with both our participants that we are not presently in a situation to hit China's wallets directly. Can we do so? Absolutely. There are many sectors where India is making good strides, positive strides to developing its capabilities, its capacities, and putting itself forth as a market that is competitive and at the same time will focus on the development of its own citizens. Just to give you a few examples, recent policy reforms that have been brought forth by the government with regards to Atmanirbhar Bharat campaign, I would just like to point out the huge increase in FDI in a couple of sectors that have come across, especially in telecom. We saw that a lot of companies recently invested heavily in Geo, which is, of course, a heavyweight in the telecom sector. We have policies that are directly poised to impact our manufacturing, which has been heavily hit because of global circumstances and global recession that has come into effect, not just because of the pandemic, but overall because of a certain set of countries dictating their power in terms of manufacturing, which one of which is of course China. But when it comes to India, that competitiveness would slowly increase with the kind of policies that we are putting in place, the kind of improvements that we are bringing into our own system, and overall the emotions of the public that complement these reforms side by side. Because when it comes to dealing with a powerhouse such as China, it matters that we use our numbers, which, like Shruti mentioned, we are the youngest country in the whole world, with an average age that is capable of working right now. As a country, when you have a collective will to do something good with the policies that have been put forth by the central government, we can bring about massive changes in the way we do things. What it obviously needs, as Nikita mentioned as well, is the lag that comes in between the state and the central governments. When the central government uh, puts forth some policies, the state governments also need to put aside their political differences and make sure that good policies are brought into implementation and executed to perfection. Well, perfection is obviously a utopian word, but as perfectly as they possibly can be executed, that should be our focus. And as citizens, it is our responsibility to bring about that change and use those policies for our own betterment, our own progress, and moving forth as a country. Because when your country moves forward, we as citizens move forward, we progress, not just as a culture, but economically, financially, fiscally, we become more independent. We are less affected by external factors that might affect us, such as the recessions that have recently hit since 2008. It doesn't seem like we have really come out of that recession after that. It's been 12 years now, but that's one of the things that we can manage as a country, because we are a huge country. We have a great domestic market, and we have all the capabilities that any other country might have to get things done. Another small point coming from my background in the tech industry is that uh, we can do a lot more than we are doing right now. We saw recent after the Galwan Valley clash, and overall with the China's geopolitical outlook and the way they are operating currently, which is what I meant by we should look at the actions of other countries as well. Many countries, um, decided to move out of China. We have a great, we are in a great position to leverage this. We have the capacity in terms of, you know, technical capability, and we also have enough opportunity to be provided to our own people. We can improve our skill sets. We can bring in good technology, good investments from abroad. We can improve our own capabilities to produce all the small to big components, things that are necessary not just to provide for ourselves but to the rest of the world as well. We have the capability to become a manufacturing powerhouse, which we already are moving towards. So two of those industries are chip manufacturing, something that India has started focusing on since a few months back, because of the situation that has arisen. And another is aerospace and defense, where the government of India is focusing heavily on reducing our imports, not just of raw materials, but of components that can be engineered and manufactured domestically, which has been in a limbo for the past 70 years, ever since independence. Something that an independent country that has been beleaguered by external invasions in its history, throughout its history, it is something that India should have focused on from the beginning to make itself independent in terms of its defense capabilities. And that is something that our government is now focusing on. Uh, we have immense number of installations. We have a lot of people working in the defense sector, and all they need are good policies and a solid framework and vision by the governments that they are dealing with, to help them gain the traction that is required to make sure that they develop good products indigenously, and in that manner that is going to straight up aid us in reducing our imports. uh, I would not claim that any of these steps will immediately result in increasing our exports, but at the same time, it is definitely going to help us reduce our trade deficit with economies that can hold a leverage over us financially. So, just uh, just this point, that we can use these capacities and we can straight away leverage the policy implementation of the central government with the aid of the state government and our own capacity as Indian citizens. We are totally capable of working wonders, and come to be at a position where we can have our own wallet. We don't even need to hit any other country's wallets for that matter. We just need to have our own.
Yes.
So that was all that I had to say from my side. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, all the participants and Anand, the presenter. I think we have discussed this. We are listening to all of your opinions. Some of the Shruti is confused, ambivalent about whether we are in a position to hit China's wallet. Like Nikita is saying, no, right now we are not in the position to hit Chinese wallet. And as Samir is saying, it's not that easy. The issue is very complicated, and we can't give binary answer to this. Like, yes, we are in a position, and yes, we are not. It's a complicated thing. We need to start our own capacity building first. There are some positive factors in favor of India. There are some negative factors, like Shruti mentioned, labor laws, ease of doing business, the red tapeism in bureaucracy, and there are several other complications which we are dealing with on our front. But as all of you have mentioned that there is demographic dividend, we are a democratic setup, we are definitely have capacity, we have those qualities. With the help of the capacity building, we will be in a position to hit China's wallet, definitely. Anand, you want to say something about this? You want to give your comments about this?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, thank you. I listened all the participants' very apt responses towards this issue. It reflects that all of us are engaging with this issue with utmost sincerity and utmost study from our end. After listening to everybody's views about it, I, as a student of this issue, also had a reflection to my own self, how to go about it and how to look at this issue in a much more broader scheme of light. As Shruti tried to put her point across, that she's ambivalent, and there are some points that we can mobilize in this kind of conflict situation, in this kind of challenging times, but we also have our own set of limitations. But when I look at the whole scenario as far as the economics of these two nations are concerned, for example, she put the point of now the trade deficit has fallen to the 48.66 US dollars in 2019 and 20. But the major import channel, the major import chunk remains the same, which is clocks and watches and the music plastics and the toys and electronics, which is a much more skilled manufacturing capital goods. They are capital goods, they are direct consumer goods, but they need a lot of expertise and skill and technical know-how, updated technical know-how. Here, as compared to Chinese model, we are somewhere lagging behind, and that has its own root in how we build our human resource, not only just as a market, not only as a labor, but also as a how we value, how we build a value addition in our school and our education and our technological development sections. Another thing that she tried to point out is that the nature by which Chinese economy functions and the way Chinese do their things. It's true that China follow the mass production module, which contains the economics of scale. And when you talk about the economics of scale, म्हणजे एखादा एक पिन तयार करण्याचा कारखाना जेव्हा एका अख्ख्या शहरामध्ये असतो आणि अख्खं एक शहर फक्त पिन तयार करतं संपूर्ण देशासाठी किंवा संपूर्ण जगासाठी, अँड अशा सिच्युएशन मध्ये जे चायनीज मॉडेल आहे त्याला पॉलिटिकल पुश फॅक्टर पण इन्व्हॉल्व्ह असतात, जबाबदार असतात. And because of the authoritarian regime nature of Chinese government, it is possible there. It has limits in India, and for a good sake, we have limitations for that, because now we also coming up with this understanding that how Chinese regime is using their own labor as a sweatshops. And as a democratic nation who believes in human rights, who believe in human dignity and the dignity of our labor, that is a lesson that we can learn and refrain copying it or implementing it in our as Shruti has rightly pointed out, that just because there is a rising anti-China sentiment in India, that we have to boycott Chinese goods, but not everyone can afford to do that. And
Yes.
precisely so, it's precisely so because the Chinese module of production, the scale of production, and the way they are developing their economics of scale is so huge that it automatically pushes all the competitors out of its market.
Yes.
And it can only happen when there is a strong political government regulating the market games, not only in their domestic sphere but also in international sphere. As we must understand that China is one of the late entrants in WTO, World Trade Organization, which puts regulations on trade and global business. China was a late entry to it, whereas India was there from its a larger sphere of time. India was there till India was part and parcel of GATT, General Agreement of Trade and Tariff.
Yes. Yes,
which was later on converted into WTO. So China has played its economical policy decision very strategically, and keeping its economical independence intact at its commanding position. As
Anand,
Shruti has said,
just
yeah.
let me interrupt. We are receiving many questions and comments from our viewers,
Yeah.
those who are watching this debate from Facebook, the online Facebook page. तर त्यामध्ये काही जे प्रश्न आहेत ते आत्ताच्या तू जे मुद्दे मांडलेस त्याला धरून आहेत. सो भावना जोशी यांनी एक खूप इंटरेस्टिंग प्रश्न विचारलाय आणि त्याच्याबद्दलच आता ऍक्च्युली तो मुद्दा श्रुतीनेही मेन्शन केला. द मेंटॅलिटी ऑफ हॅव्हिंग ऑर बाईंग चीप गुड्स. So how are we going to deal with that mentality of consumers? So त्या भावना जोशींनी हाच प्रश्न इथे विचारला की such development will come up with other complications. Are we in a position to deal with social, psychological, environmental impact of excessive consumerism? So याच्यावरती सर्व पार्टिसिपंट्सही बोलू शकतात आणि आनंदही बोलू शकतोच की या गोष्टीशी आपण कसं डील करणार आहोत.
Okay. So I would like to listen our participants' take, and then I will like to do a
Sameer,
comment
Shruti,
on
do you want to add anything? Nikita, तुम्ही म्यूट आहात आय गेस. येस. किंवा अखिल, अखिललाही काही जर बोलायचं असेल या प्रश्नावरती की हे जे सोशल, सायकोलॉजिकल, एन्व्हायरमेंटल इम्पॅक्ट आहेत एक्सेसिव्ह कन्झ्युमरिझमचे, त्याबरोबर आपण कसं डील करायचं, आणि किंवा वाटताना त्या गोष्टी खूप सोप्या वाटतात, इट्स व्हेरी इझी, लेट्स बॉयकॉट चायनीज गुड्स, बट हाऊ टू डील विथ द अदर इम्पॅक्ट of this excessive consumerism?
Thank you, Neha. So the question deals with basically development and the concept of development at large. So while we are addressing that we are hitting somebody's, some countries' wallets, we have to factor in that how we grew. So I'm actually interested to know Sameer's take on this, because he said that we have to focus on our own wallet. And when we focus on our wallet, we also focus on our spendings. We also focus on our investments, and we also focus on what things we value. And this question deals specifically with those.
Yes.
So here, 2 points of view I'm interested in as a moderator, as a co-moderator here. One is our wallets and what I have said. And second, what Shruti mentioned very clearly, she brought this point into the discussion, is that as the government changes, somewhere the nation's direction or the nation's vision changes. So this is a perception. This might be a reality to a certain extent. So I'd like to hear both of your views. Sameer first.
Yeah, thanks, Akhil. It's a great question, and in the sense that the answer is multifold, and it's difficult to answer such a question. In very plain terms. There are, I think there are different levels to how excessive consumerism is going to affect us in the future. But I think as a society, India has proven itself to be very fiscally prudent till date. We as Indians, we don't go out and spend a huge chunk of our money and blow it on stuff just to be able to buy it. And I know that there might be many people who like to do it, who are good consumers, who go out and purchase a lot of things, which is obviously something that any emerging economy would have and should have, actually, to some extent. But what we also have along with it is a great sense of vision when it comes to laying down our architecture and our policies in a manner that it is overall encompassing the pros and cons of any situation arising out of our policies that we are looking to implement. That is somewhere, that is one aspect that India as an emerging economy has done well in. It has obviously resulted in certain situations where we have been at a disadvantage in the past. But I also strongly believe that we can use this strength of ours to to introduce and implement policies that directly impact our country in a positive manner. We have the brains to be able to think of overall situations and circumstances that might arise with the implementations of policies that we are looking at doing right now in the future. We have a lot of capability to determine what the impact of such policies are going to be. And I believe that we even if we don't seem to be in a position to tackle these impacts, whether be it psychological, socio-political, environmental, we definitely can be, because we definitely have the capacity to think of the impacts of every action that we are engaging in right now.
Okay, great. Great, great. Akhil, do you want to add anything to this answer?
Yes. Rather than add to this, like I said, Shruti had made a very important point regarding this, having a national vision as a national goal. So how do we put this topic into the terms of a national goal? Can this become the national goal of India that we want to, if at all it can, what would it look like? So I want to know Shruti's views on this one. Thank you.
Thank you, Akhil. So basically, what I think about this is that the change we are talking about needs to be radical and, as we say, catch them young, honestly. The thing is that the nation that we have seen a lot of changes and lots of ups and downs in the past few decades, and we have managed to survive and probably even thrive, I could say. So I believe that as a nation, collectively, if the government as well as the citizens together work towards a particular goal, the crystal clear vision that needs to be put in place, then this is possible. And honestly, the government has already introduced the national education policy, which also focuses on skill development and stuff like that, which will encourage and probably ready our next generations to come to handle these changes or handle these particular say upheaval of how we look at our country today in a way. That
Yes,
is
Yeah,
what I think.
yes.
thank you.
I think Shruti has raised again very important issue. Yeah, I think Anand wants to say something. Before that, Anand, just
Yeah.
let me raise again a very quick question raised by Rishikesh. Are we in a position to take any drastic step? So when Shruti was mentioning that the change needs to be radical. So Rishikesh is asking about that only, that are we in a position to take any drastic step towards severing our ties given in China's strategic, political, and economic engagement at various places of the globe? So, what could be our policy directions? So, we can club these two questions together. Now, over to you, Anand. I think Anand wants to say something, and then Akhil.
Yeah. Yeah. So I want to address the particular question of Rishikesh, Mr. Rishikesh,
Yeah.
that he's asking that can we affect China's relationship, political and economical engagements at various places of the globe?
Yeah.
So, and what could be our policy directions? So, to understand India and China's relationship at global arena of power relations, we have to understand that we two nations are at times it conflict with each other at one place, but at the same time we're also cooperating at other ends.
Yes.
For example,
Yes.
when it comes to climate change, India and China are working together to ensure historical responsibility on developed nations to
Yes.
own carbon responsibility at their end.
Yes.
Again, in organizations like SCO, which is Shanghai Cooperation Organization, which is a out and out geostrategic and geopolitical organization, which has a stronger ramifications towards AFPAC region and the theater of war, which is right there. There, India and China are cooperating with each other. And for example, China also have a strategic positions in other parts of world. For example, Djibouti, which is present at the Horn of Africa, which is very close to the Suez Canal. China has a strong presence there. So if we try to hit them at other places, it will become a slippery slope. This is my personal honest take, that it may lead to a slippery slope of reaction towards each other. But as he asked that, then what should be our policy direction? So I recall a very simple, a very important story of Birbal, which he said that if you want to erase or make somebody's line shorter, you make your line bigger. You grow. Nobody is stopping you from doing and handling the social reforms and political reforms in your own
Yes.
country. Okay. And another question that Ms. Bhavna Joshi has also asked, that what should be the social psychological angle of
Yeah.
using cheap goods in excessive consumerist environment? We have to understand that even though we are a young nation and a marketing market superpower, as we like to call ourselves, but many people in India today, the reality is their purchasing capacity is very less. Their purchasing parity is very less. So these people look at
I think there is some problem at Anand's end.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. So talking about consumerism. Okay, is Anand back?
I
Yeah.
think so. Yeah.
Yes,
Anand.
Anand.
Yeah.
Please continue. Yeah.
So so Bhavna Joshi's question was the social psychology of using cheap goods and excessive consumerism. We have to understand
Yes.
that even though we are a rising market with a demographic dividend, the purchasing parity of our nation and a majority of ours is very less. And many people look at consumption of goods, specifically finished goods, luxurious goods, as a agent of their social, economical, cultural mobilization. And that will remain there. It will happen like that. And that is a possibility. It is not a liability. In fact, it's a dividend that we have to reap if we reap it in a right way. So that is a important question
Yeah,
that we
but
have
Anand,
to
you
focus
were
on.
okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
one more question by Uma Bapat, that she
Yes,
asked
yes.
that radical development of supply chain management,
Yes.
how China could able to create its radical development in supply chain management, and how it could not be happen in India's case. We have to understand that the model of radical development of supply chains in China, in Japan, and in South Korea are more or less same. For example, in Japanese case, it's the Kiretsu and the Zaibatsu model, which was later on used in a improvised in a Korean way by South Korean experiment, and which was again used in a Chinese way in a form of SEZ. Okay. But when we use and try to implement such radical development of supply chain management in India's case, we have to consider we cannot do the business the way Chinese
Yes.
or Japanese did in their country. We have to understand the social, cultural, land relations, and the labor relation fabric of our country.
Yes. Yes.
One
Yeah.
more question that
Wait,
I will
think Akhil
introduce
wants
that
to.
question.
Yes.
Yes.
Akhil will introduce.
So we are talking about the economic side of things. So I'd also like to listen to Nikita on this point, that China went on a dumping spree
Yes.
a couple of years ago. China went on a huge and insane dumping spree, which predominantly was responsible for the steel sector. So this is one question that I want to know, that when we are dealing with it, now it has taken a drastic step regarding with the dumping spree. That is one question that has been asked by Nikhil Kulkarni.
Yes.
Sorry, Mayur.
think
I am
Mayur.
very sorry. Yeah, Mayur has asked this interesting question, and I would like to know the Nikita's answer, Nikita's views regarding the dumping spree. Thank you.
Yeah, I completely agree to the point that China has been on a dumping spree, and we saw a drastic impact on our domestic markets because it was making our products insanely expensive in front of them. So the comparative price advantage meant a huge amount of business and a huge amount of money was going to China. But then I think there's just in such cases, countries take a very strong stand. Now, one of the issues over here is that you cannot get up one day and say to China that I'm slapping sanctions on your products. All countries don't have the guts, and second, the countries do not have the avenues because there are so many countries right now who are under debt. they owe debt to China. For example,
Yes.
Sri Lanka.
Yes.
Sri Lanka's most of the infrastructural development has been backed by Chinese yuan. So this issue becomes when countries try to stop China from dumping in their domestic markets, and it becomes even more adverse in developing economies, where it renders the locals, the rural markets, completely useless, because at any producer is going to think, if my cost is not being covered by my price, why should I even produce? That means that they are going to become unemployed. So I think in this situation, now that we have already started standing up for ourselves, not only domestically, but also in the international spheres, uh, we need to make it a point to, um, make it a point to put the message clearly across to China that, sorry, you cannot put your big brother policies, you cannot be a bully with us, because it's our country. We are going to decide what is going to be sold in our spheres. But I frankly don't have any data to support this, but this is completely from the study which I have been doing about this issue for the past year or so. So these are my thoughts.
Yeah, because I was also studying this topic like last week. I got some points and I've got my own notes. So I got to know about this free trade agreements, FTA. So many people are saying that India needs to focus on increasing or signing these FTAs with the different countries to decrease the dependency on Chinese products. So India and Australia free trade agreement is it's in discussion phase since last 8 years. India and EU free trade agreement is in discussion phase since last 10 years. So I think we need to focus on these signing these or making this process of signing free trade agreements a little faster, and we need to focus on that, as well as I think many of us have discussed and raised many important issues. Our own capacity building, like when I was studying this topic, there are 4 important factors which we need to take into consideration when we say that we need to boycott or we need to decrease this dependency on Chinese goods for China. There are 4 issues involved. First is there are Chinese companies who have invested in India. Second is there are some products made in China, but the companies are not Chinese. Third is Chinese spare parts are there. And fourth important issue is Chinese investments in Indian startups. सो आपण जेव्हा असं म्हणतो की चायनावरची डिपेंडन्सी कमी केली पाहिजे, तर त्यात कुठल्या ह्या 4 फॅक्टर्स मधून आपण जर त्याच्याकडे बघितलं तर खूप लोक असं म्हणतात की वी विल कीप सपोर्ट ओला झोमॅटो बिकॉज इंडियन एम्प्लॉयमेंट इज डिपेंडेंट ऑन ओला. there are many Indians working in Zomato. So it's unfair to boycott Swiggy or to boycott Ola. सो मला असं वाटतं की त्यातले हे जे कॉम्प्लिकेशन्स आहेत की आम्ही चायनीज आपण सगळं चायनीज बॅन नाही करू शकत, पण आपण आपलं कपॅसिटी बिल्डिंग कशा पद्धतीने करू शकतो, किंवा आपण आपले जसं आनंदने सांगितलं की वी नीड टू फोकस ऑन आर सोशल रिफॉर्म्स, पॉलिटिकल रिफॉर्म्स, इकॉनॉमिक रिफॉर्म्स, आणि या दीज प्रोसेसेस विल गो हँड इन हँड असं मला वाटलं जेव्हा मी या विषयाचा अभ्यास केला. मला असं वाटतं की आपल्याला फेसबुकवरनं खूप सारे प्रश्न येत आहेत आणि आपण ते घेतले पाहिजेत, कारण खूप लोकांनी याच्याबद्दल प्रश्न विचारलाय. पेटंट्स बद्दल प्रश्न विचारला गेलेला आहे. सो आय थिंक अखिल तुला तो प्रश्न पुढे न्यायचा आहे.
Oh. So when it comes to intellectual property rights, this is where it gets a little sketchy for us because India doesn't have really a very good record, or probably it is a dimension where we want to go, something that we want to achieve, but we don't really know how we are going to do it.
Yes.
Right? So this question has been asked by Nikhil Kulkarni. So this about regarding the intellectual property rights, your views, Samir, you'd like to answer this, and then I'll come to Anand. Yes.
Yeah.
Something with regards to IP rights, and here comes the difference, which is stark between India and China, is that China can do things that India cannot, because we are a free country, we are a democracy, we have an open system, and people come to know what actions we take. So if there is a foreign company investing in India and they have an intellectual property that they are investing in and producing goods or developing services from Indian soil, the Indian system in no way both as a responsible economy and the way we treat our investors will not look at treating that IP in a negative manner. There have been historical incidences, and this is something that I came across during my time in the US, where a closed system that is secretive in nature stands uh, at gaining everything from an IP that is invested on its own soil, and that is something that China has succeeded in doing. So when we deal with IPs, we need to come up with our own policies in such a manner that they are going to be beneficial for us. I don't claim to be an expert on that topic, but when dealing with IPs, it's going to be a very very subtle strategy that India is going to have to employ, because we can't be China, but at the same time we need the know-how and the capability to get us where we need to be.
Yes, I
Great,
think
thank you.
we have to keep it short because it's 6:20 and we have received many questions from Facebook. Riddhi, Mayur, Nikhil, Bhavana, Uma, thank you so much. जरी आम्ही तुमच्या सगळ्या प्रश्नांची उत्तरे या सेशनमध्ये नाही देऊ शकलो तरी विल keep you posted. We'll keep answering all your questions on our Facebook page. आता आपण मला वाटतं की आनंद एक लास्ट आनंदची कमेंट घेऊया and then we'll move to this concluding remarks for the session. Anand, over to you.
Yeah, Neha. See, when we understand the India-China's patent relationship and how China utilized its patent policies to mobilize itself in a business manner, China did it in two ways. Either one way by retro learning, so you take
Yes.
the finished products from developed countries with all their technology, you disassemble it, learn it, again build it, and then you create your own copy of Chinese version of it. They fantastically did that in many cases. And then is another aspect which Chinese were actually did well, which we have a kind of a little bit a blind side towards, which is they were innovative. They have did some critical and fundamental research in other aspects which we could not able to do it. And see, the thing is, the Western technology surplus nations have also learned this lesson from Chinese, that they are allowing ourselves in Chinese territory through SEZ, and then China retro learn our products and then dominate our own market. So now the policy that this technological surplus developed nations, Western nations are doing is that they do not give you their updated state of the craft, state of the art technology, but they only establish a workshops, assembling workshops in your country. So they do not share important information and important knowledge. So we also have to revisit our policy with respect to IPR. We cannot do the things the way Chinese did in their 80s and early 90s. We have to build our critical and fundamental research, and we have to come out of our Jugaad culture, which only talks about prima facie manipulations to build something. Discoveries and innovations have a very less probability to come out of Jugaad, but they have a higher probability to come out of through critical fundamental research. One more point that one question that regarding dumping was discussed here. As China, as Neha has rightly pointed out, because of the WTO and FTA regime, and because of the most favored nation categorization under WTO, it's very difficult to ban or create a non-tariff barriers or consumption and import-export of materials. But here also, India has to work on its own domestic capacities. Taking an example of steel, we had to face a huge scam in coal. And coal sector is very closely connected to the steel sector because steel needs coal as an energy. So when you have a coal scams, so what happens is you are underutilizing your coal capacities as well, and you're also underutilizing your steel capacities as well. So when other countries are ready to provide you cheap steel by dumping it, our manufacturers, our industries are going to use it. So it is our mandate to use it in such a way that we have to build our own domestic capacities. The last point I want to put
Yes.
forward is that so somebody has raised a issue of government changes. So when government change, there is no uniformity of our
Yes.
economic policies. I myself beg to differ on this point because since the second economic plan, which is the Nehru-Mahalanobis plan of industrial development, we have seen a gradual tendency to shift towards free market transactions. And it is also because of the backdrop of Cold War and how
Yes.
in 1990s, Soviet Union was
Dismembered.
removed, dismembered, and there was a unified economic power of rise of Western power in the form of US and its liberal market scenario.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
from Indira Gandhi's point, from Indira Gandhi's time as well, we have seen India's little steps to open
Yes.
its market, which we see in a huge thrust in 1990, which is the liberalization, privatization, and globalization reforms. And after that, no matter it's a government from Congress or BJP, people have practiced free market policies. So we have seen this transition, and it is also because of India cannot keep itself isolated from the global transactions and global changes in world economy and the world business and trade relations.
Yes, मला असं वाटतं की you have said like you have raised very important point when we say that economic policy, when we are talking about economic policy or foreign policy, we need to understand that these are extremely loaded terms. अशा वेळी खूपदा आपल्याला हे लक्षात घ्यायला पाहिजे की इकॉनॉमिक पॉलिसीज, फॉरेन पॉलिसीज या खूपदा एका कंटिन्युएशनचा भाग असतात आणि त्या पद्धतीने ऍटलिस्ट या दोन पॉलिसीज तरी खूप रॅडिकल चेंजेस न होता पुढे जात असतात. आणि त्यामुळे आपण जरी गव्हर्नमेंटमध्ये चेंजेस झाले तरी ऑब्व्हियसली काही ऍडिशन्स होतात, काही गोष्टी गाळल्या जातात, पण खूप मोठ्या प्रमाणामध्ये मागच्या गव्हर्नमेंटच्या गोष्टी वेगळ्या पद्धतीने, वेगळ्या फॉर्मनी, एका ठराविक फिलॉसॉफीनी पुढे नेल्या जातात. आणि मला असं वाटतं की वी नीड टू कीप दॅट इन माइंड जेव्हा आपण इकॉनॉमिक्स किंवा फॉरेन पॉलिसी सारख्या लोडेड टॉपिक्स बद्दल सातत्याने चर्चा करत असतो. आय थिंक येस, आता आपण डिस्कशन थांबवूया बिकॉज इट्स 6:27. So I think we have discussed this present topic in depth. Thank you all the participants, presenter for this wonderful, insightful discussion on this topic. Now on behalf of Secretary panel, Komal will Komal will give the concluding remarks. Over to you, Komal.
Yes, thank you, Neha. So today, our topic, are we prepared to hit China's wallet, was discussed in this session of Golmej. An insightful and thought-provoking presentation was made by the presenter. The presenter and participants drew our attention to pertinent points such as, or pertaining to, the economic standing of India and China at the moment, the development in this context through past few years, as has been observed, with India's import from China being 13.7% of the total and China's import from India being 0.9% of their total. Various statistics were quoted to show that China does top, among them one, that China does top the list of countries India imports most from, and while China ranks number 3 among countries that we export most to. Another important point that was made pertained to the forms of government in India and China and the impact it has on the abilities of both these countries to develop their economy or increase manufacturing. The differentiation that is there in our economies based on the manufacturing service sectors of our economies was also mentioned. In this, panelists discussed the scenario pertaining to India's dependence on import of finished goods while exporting predominantly raw materials to China, which was looked at as a situation that needs to be changed, if not entirely reversed, for it to be benevolent for India's aim of hitting China's wallet. It was recognized by participants that we have a multitude of problems to tackle before we can actually achieve our economy's full potential. In this context, the hurdles posed by certain law provisions pertaining to labor laws were also discussed, and their bearing on India's manufacturing sector. Two of the participants presented an optimistic picture towards the goal of overcoming China with our own potential of bringing about economic development through the right kind of policy changes and implementation, while one participant expressed being doubtful over the realization of the goal of hitting China's wallet, for which a systemic overhaul would be required, she said. India's efforts in pursuit of the goal of overcoming China's economic might was looked at as a goal that we do want to achieve. Then participants also talked about the various aspects that are involved pertaining to innovation and the large scale cheap goods production that China has been undertaking in the past few years, and where does India stand pertaining to this point. The strategic and political challenges that could possibly erupt in front of India in pursuit of this goal to overcome China were also discussed as part of this session. India's biggest assets were considered as being its human resource that is characterized by its large youth population at the moment. So an objective understanding of all these points was aided by way of the discussions among all the participants and the presenter. So through this seasoned discussion, our participants came to agreement on some points as well. Number one, at the moment, India faces a massive trade deficit as seen through statistics with China and is not in a position to hit China's wallet immediately was number one point that was agreed upon. Number two, India needs to reduce its economic dependency on China. Number three, the manufacturing sector is the crust where to make the desired impact. And number four, India needs policy reforms in various sectors to push its economic development. Our viewers also put some questions to the panelists, such as those pertaining to topics of intellectual property. Secondly, India's capacity in handling consumerism and the environmental impact that would be if we push our manufacturing sector, if we want to push our manufacturing sector. Another topic that was raised by way of a question by viewers was the effect of India's goal on its business relations that can be with some other countries. Then another question pertained to India's capacity to take drastic steps to achieve its goal, the goal being hitting China's wallet or overcoming China. Also, another question pertained to technological innovation, the context as seen in case of India and China and India's abilities there. So through this discussion, we've been able to get a deeper insight of our topic at hand, and viewers too, as we have seen, have delved into multiple aspects involved in this topic, like we saw through their questions and comments. We could conclude these remarks with that as a summary of what we saw in today's discussion in Golmej. Neha.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Komal. So huge round of applause and appreciation for all the participants and the presenter. And now we are heading towards the end, and now I have some important announcements to make. Before that, Akhil has one important point of an announcement to make. Over to you, Akhil.
Thank you, Neha. So after this session of Golmej, while we are in midst of many ideas, and we have also come to many solutions, and I'm sure all the viewers might be having some that process of idea to solution in their minds going on right now. I want to announce about an international article writing and elocution competition. Honestly, the concept and execution is by Opus Socio-Commercials Private Limited, and it is being organized in association with MIT World Peace University and Bharatiya Chhatra Sansad. Honestly is an article writing and elocution competition. The details will be provided in the comment section in the Facebook, as well as please follow the page. All the details regarding this are there. Just a reminder, last date is 20th of August. And it is open for all. Kids, adults, everybody can participate. So just like the priming of ideas has been done, go ahead, put those ideas on a paper, record it on a video and submit it, and do participate in this competition honestly. This is the announcement. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Akhil. Now I have some important announcements to make about Golmej. We have Facebook page and Insta handle for Golmej. Please like it so that you will get all the updates of upcoming sessions. Now, as I said, we can connect you with all of you on Facebook. So please feel free to share your suggestions, comments, and feedbacks with us on Golmej. You can DM us. We are planning to have a Golmage on every third Saturday of the month. The event is going to be online and open, free for everyone. Now I want to make the announcement about next month's Golmage topic. I request Kapilesh to share the slide. The topic is online education, online schooling, conventional, unconventional, or beyond. We are going to have our next Golmage on this topic. So yes, now you can join us, join this forum. You can be a presenter, you can be the participant, and we are sharing a link in comment section about participating in Golmage. There is a small form which you need to fill up. So please fill that form so that we can get back to you regarding Golmage and the participation in Golmage. We are available, as I said, on Facebook. Please feel free to share your comments and feedbacks and suggestions. See you all next month. Till then, keep exploring the world. This is Neha signing off.